So let's just review where we are in terms of the hierarchy. The hierarchy is that there's gold at the top plus SDRs, okay, which is a sort of paper gold that's a fixed quantity that's been added to the system. Okay. Underneath that, in Bretton Woods, okay, is the dollar, which is pegged to gold at $35 an ounce. Okay. And underneath that is all the other currencies: Deutschmark, British pound, French franc. So which are pegging to the dollar. This is the Bretton Woods Agreement, okay? That the dollar is convertible into gold, and the other currencies are convertible into the dollar. Okay. So where the extra reserves came to allow growth in the post-war period for a while was not in creation of more gold or SDRs or revaluation, but in creation of more dollars. Okay. Now, what Mundell emphasizes is trade deficits, okay? That the way that basically the U.S. is paying dollars abroad, okay? And that's true to some extent, but that's not where they all came from. In fact, a lot of them came from the U.S. doing this sort of transaction. So here's the U.S., here's the rest of the world, okay? You can increase the quantity of dollar reserves in the economy, in the world, okay, without having a trade deficit at all. Okay, this is the point that Kindleberger used to make. Kindleberger, who was Mundell's professor at MIT, okay, Charles Kindleberger. Suppose the U.S. Lends to the rest of the world. Okay, they're trying to build, Europe is trying to reconstruct itself, and the U.S. finances that. Okay, so by buying plus foreign bonds here. At the same time, the rest of the world is trying to accumulate monetary reserves because they're trying to grow. Okay. What am I showing here? I'm showing here the U.S. as a bank, the United States as a bank, the entire country as a bank, okay? That it has short-term liabilities to the rest of the world that the rest of the world is using as their money, as international money. And it has long-term assets, okay, that are loans to the rest of the world. I'm showing this as if these are the same number so that there's no net flows. There's no capital flows, there's no trade flows. There were some capital flows and trade flows, absolutely. But the point I'm trying to emphasize here is that the U.S. was able and did in fact increase the quantity of international reserves so long as people were willing to accept the dollar as an international reserve. The U.S. had some gold here, okay, as a reserve. So the United States is acting as a bank, and it is holding the international reserves for the entire world. Okay? As long as the entire world is willing to accept dollars and not demand gold, this works fine. Okay? And you can expand the reserves. It's a sort of Bancor plan, okay? Sort of Bancor plan, but on the U.S. balance sheet, not on some international balance sheet. And you're making money on this because these dollars are not paying very much interest, if any. If it's currency, there's no interest, and these are. So there's an interest differential here that the U.S. is earning. This worked for a while. It worked to mitigate the discipline that the IMF was creating. The IMF was there to say, we're not going to expand international reserves at the top of the hierarchy, okay? But the U.S. as a bank was there to say, we are going to expand international reserves the next step down. Okay. So there was expansion of reserves the next step down, but there was not expansion here, and so what happened? Okay, you start to get stress, like there's not enough reserves here to back this dollar, okay? This is expanding, this is not. Okay, so the gold and the SDR part starts to get undervalued, okay, and their stresses start to build up in the system. What are the solutions to these? This is Mundell again. We could have revalued gold. We could have created more SDRs. Okay? He tells a story that in 1967, okay, there was an increase in SDRs, but not enough, $10 billion. Not enough. He tells a story, which I've seen here for the first time, okay, that Arthur Burns was delegated to go wandering around Europe talking to central bankers about, would you be okay if we revalued gold? Okay, and he felt maybe they would. And he suggested to Nixon that he do it right after he won the election, and he just forgot to do it or didn't pay attention or something. And so it didn't happen. So this is in 1968, that election. And by 1971, the problem of there being too many dollars and not enough gold winds up causing the U.S. to go off gold. And that's the end of that system. That's the end of Bretton Woods. It would have been fine, Kindleberger emphasized this to his whole life, it would have been fine if only foreigners, okay, had not insisted on being paid in gold. If they had just accepted, okay, dollars, they're going to be, the National Reserve is going to be dollars, and this gold thing is sort of a fiction. Okay, but they didn't accept that. They thought the gold was the better money, and it got, there was a smaller and smaller quantity of that relative to the quantity of dollars, and so there was a run on the dollar, and instead of paying out all the gold, Nixon just closed the gold window, and that was the end. The dollar was no longer convertible into gold.